First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
I took 42 classes as an undergraduate, and exactly one of them was in an auditorium with hundreds of students. Most of the classes were 12 students sitting around a table arguing with the professor. But one class was so fiercely popular on our campus that hundreds of students across undergrad and all the graduate disciplines begged and borrowed and frankly bribed our way in. But to explain the popularity of this class, you have to understand a little thing about my college. When I came to the University of Chicago, the most popular t-shirt on campus said, "The University of Chicago, where fun comes to die." I want to clarify that was not just a t-shirt, it was the most popular t-shirt on campus, where fun comes to die. Let me frame it another way. Shortly before I arrived, the Princeton Review did a survey of the 300 best party schools and placed the University of Chicago at dead last, 300th. The authors, I think, argued that you cannot party at the Naval Academy and you are forbidden to party at the Oral Roberts University. You could at Chicago, you just don't. Now, as these top 10 schools were celebrating debauchery, we were celebrating scholarship and debate. We were a people who loved difficult words and difficult concepts. So here I was, a bright-eyed 18-year-old, walking into my first class, human being and citizen. And the professor starts talking about Aristotle's views of eudaimonia. And they just keep going as if we understood what that word meant. And so you could ask, "I'm sorry, professor, can you explain what that word means?" But they would just point to the giant library on campus and say, I'll bet one of the 6 million books there will tell you. Eudaimonia, noun, ancient Greek, literally good spirit. It means human flourishing, highest good. It's like the intersection of happiness and purpose. So I'd leave that class, and I'd head to a music class, and the professor would start talking about the Weltanschauung in Vienna in 1800, as if we knew what that meant. So I learned my lesson, I looked it up. Weltanschauung, German, literally, worldview, refers to like the comprehensive construct of the world and humanity's role in it. And the lesson I learned really quickly on that campus was this. The professor is not there to help me understand the subject. I'm there to learn how to understand the subject the way they do. They're not here to help me. Which is why this one class needed an auditorium to fit us. I don't even remember what it was formally called, but we called it Little Red Schoolhouse. Back to basics. It was co-taught by an English professor and a professor from the Graduate School of Business, and they dropped the hammer on day one. You all don't know how to write. It's not your fault. You're drowning in bad writing, and you always have been. To demonstrate this, they put up the first sentence of our nation's Declaration of Independence, and then they asked us the question that would haunt us all term. Who is doing what in this sentence? Allow me to read it for you. I know you can't read it. That's the point. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Who is doing what in that sentence? If you ever learned how to diagram sentence, this one will bend your brain. It took that auditorium of hundreds of future scholars a long time to answer the question of who's doing what. When you, England, stop representing us, it's fair to say why we're leaving you. That's it. So we learned to lean into active tense and to suspect passive tense. You'll notice this in politicians, how they love to use active tense when they're promising, we will fight for you, but suddenly they go into passive tense when mistakes were made. So over the next few weeks, we sat in rapt attention as these professors skewered the unnecessarily complex writing that we were all slogging through in our own disciplines, writing that we had spent our young academic lives pretending we understood. And there was a sweet taste of redemption. It turns out we're not stupid. This is just bad writing. And then they turned the tables on us. You saw it coming, right? And they turned to us and they said, okay, now you write something clearly. And wouldn't you know, it turns out that's hard. I'd start a draft of the essay and I'd fill the page with all of my thoughts, but then I had to go through each sentence. Who is doing what? And I'd have to look at each paragraph. What is the central point of this paragraph? And suddenly I realized it's quite hard to clarify your thoughts. I just wanted to say whatever I was thinking and make the reader do the work of making sense of it for me. So off I went to college, after college, to teach 7th through 12th graders. And I remembered the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I remembered feeling so stupid as a student when all I wanted was help learning the material. So I helped. I tried as best I could to figure out with these young minds, what is the clearest way to explain what I'm trying to say? How can I help them sing better, learn to sight read better, pronounce other languages better, with clear and precise instruction? And over months and months, I developed a really good, clear way to explain a couple complex ideas of singing. And I'd love to say it worked. But the twist is that my clear teaching language didn't help every student, because I was operating under an assumption. I knew bad writing was bad, but I thought there might be one good way to teach singing, and the evidence is in, there isn't. There's no one way to teach anything, because it turns out we're different. We have different kinds of brains. We have different ways of learning. And the quest for the rest of my teaching life became, how can I teach in a way that is clear and helpful to many different people, that meets their different needs? And that's why the book Don't Hug Doug shows up today. Because it's normal to assume that there are some universal things. For example, hugs are a universal way of saying, I care about you. But Don't Hug Doug reminds us that's not true. Sometimes people don't like hugs. They have a back problem and the hug actually hurts. Or they have sensory issues with touch and hugs are overwhelming. Or they have a cold and they don't want to give it to you. They have past trauma and the hug activates it. In fact, there are so many reasons why it's not a universal act. And so asking if someone wants a hug is like writing clearly for the reader. And recognizing that not everyone wants a hug is a form of pluralism, recognizing our diversity. Now, Don't Hug Doug is a fantastic metaphor about pluralism and difference, but it's also literally a book about touch and consent. So while we're on the topic, I love hugs. And I will never initiate the hug. And I want to tell you why. I'm your minister. And when I initiate that hug, it's never clear to me if you're saying yes because you want that hug or because some part of your brain defers to authority. If you want the hug, I'll always reciprocate unless I have a cold or a backache, which is why you ask. Now, when I say hug, I mean like a gentle pause hug. Do you know how often people squeeze my arms? Too much. Or they rub my back or they pinch my stomach. I've had that happen a lot. I don't like that. I didn't ask for that. No, thank you. Or I'll put it in Doug's voice. No, thank you. Because it turns out writing academic literature to be understood is hard, but asking for consent is easy. Hey, would you like a hug? It's an open-ended question, and any answer is okay. No thanks is a complete sentence that does not require follow-up. When we don't ask, we assume that what you want is what the other person wants. As in, I love knowing ancient Greek words, surely you must too. Now, writing clearly for readers is one thing, but writing clearly for public speaking is a whole nother problem. There are, as you can imagine, rooms full of books about writing sermons. It's actually a whole field called homiletic. And there are rules to homiletic, rules like never use the first person, or Never make more than one joke. How am I doing so far? These rules remind me of the rules that were instilled in me as a young conductor. What I'm about to say is an actual rule that was actually taught to me. Never say more than 7 words to the choir at a time, and one of those words should be in Italian. I think I understand the concern. You're trying to capture the complexity of the subject matter and you want to convey it with respect. But let me assure you, sermons, like rehearsals, start with a complex idea. A complex idea, for example, around the nature of belonging and citizenship, about what we owe one another in a community to feel that we can belong authentically, but also respect the appropriate boundaries and authenticity of others who also have a right to belong. That's a complex question, and that's the question the celebrant team framed for us for this Sunday, September 14th. It's been my experience that the complex version of the response to that question is the first draft of the sermon. That's the brain emptying its thoughts into a web of tangled ideas. The first draft asks you all to make sense of what I think I might have been trying to say. Every draft after that is me asking, who is doing what in this sentence? With each successive draft, I'm asking, can this be clearer? Can this reach more people? Because you know you write for an audience, and here the audience is 80 years old and 8 years old. It has a GED and a PhD. It donates $100,000 at a time, and it's asking me for support to cover this month's rent. It's a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, and a Socialist. It thinks in metaphors, and it's literal. So I have to cut away a lot of beloved words and clauses in order to make space for what must be said. I have to turn whatever my brain dumped out onto the paper into something that can be reformatted that might be helpful to each of you across your beautifully diverse differences. And I'm laughing because as I'm reading this, you can see sentences that I had to cut away just to get here. So the question I ask about sermons is, can you articulate what I said last week, and did you think about it at all over the week? Because those questions tell me if I helped you where you are and the journey of where you want to get to. Because it's equally possible for me to stand up here and preach about the hermeneutic of suspicion as a praxis for the liminality of racialized hegemonies. That sentence actually makes sense. Look it up in the library. Now, what does writing clearly and hugging have to do with one another at all? And how does it speak to September of building belonging? I want to suggest they're all about the platinum rule. You know the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's a good rule. But sometimes people take it too literally. Hug other people because you like hugs. Use fancy words because you like fancy words. The platinum rule goes further. Do unto others as they would want done to them. Treat people the way they want to be treated. Show people affection the way they want affection. Speak to them the way they like to be spoken to. I think of it this way. In the golden rule, I, Steve Sieck, like steak, so I want to celebrate you and I buy you steak. In the platinum rule, I remember you're vegetarian. We're talking about building belonging this month, and here is the point. When we build belonging, you belong just as you are, authentically. Belonging in a UU congregation means you are loved as you are today, and you love other people exactly as they are today. And that is the complex challenge that has required 100 drafts of this sermon. How can you be authentically you and also see the authenticity of this other person? Step 1 is finding yourself authentically. As Mary Oliver so eloquently puts it, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own. And that's what belonging feels like, knowing your own voice. But there's also a piece about building belonging. And so step 2 is learning to see and hear the true voice of this other person. I don't need to take a hand poll here, but I'm wondering in my own mind how many of you were invited to come here by a friend. I'm guessing it's many. Someone first invited you to come here to check out First Unitarian. Someone heard your new voice emerging and said, you should check out First Unitarian. You will find a sense of belonging there. Part of building belonging is honoring someone with that no pressure, no intentional pressure, intention to check out First U. Now, I don't mean evangelizing. We're not trying to coerce and win people over to our non-creedal pluralist position. I don't know what that would look like. But I mean seeing in your friend their authentic self and saying, I think this is a place where you will be able to be exactly who you are and feel supported and encouraged in your journey. Because that's how Brene Brown thinks of it in her book, Braving the Wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. Finding a place to be who you are. We have this beautiful community fair right after the service today. I ask you to come and check out so many different ways to be who you are. As I said last week, try and find a place where you can show up for the world in a justice cause, and also find a place where you can fill your cup, where you can grow spiritually and ethically. We were onto something in that auditorium. We were onto something as we discarded the passive voice and learned to write clearly. Because on a campus dedicated to putting students through the fiery trials of academic writing, we were practicing a radical, a transgressive act of daring to write for the reader. And a little seed of empathy grows there. Let me translate that word for you, dear students. Eudaimonia is an ancient Greek word that means flourishing and purpose and highest good. And that little seed of empathy grows into an awareness that we can practice working across differences to help one another flourish. It fosters in a young teacher an awareness of diverse learning. Therefore, I should ask you if you want a hug, because I understand that you are you. And without clear communication, we make assumptions about what the other person wants. And without the platinum rule, we don't make the effort to see the authenticity of self. So I invite you into a practice this week. Practice speaking to be understood. And practice listening to understand. Practice engaging with someone attentive to what they want. Now, you may find that through this dance between thinking and acting, a feeling arises, a feeling of happiness and purpose and human flourishing. I'm delighted to tell you I know what that is. Eudaimonia. May it be so.